Welcome into the second episode of the Table 2 Ticket, a podcast for, by, and about Table 2 carriers. Before we get into today's topics, this episode topics, let's get the legal stuff out of the way. This is an opinion podcast. Anything stated on this podcast is the opinion, and it is an opinion, and it belongs to the author. It does not necessarily represent the official views of the USPS, the NALC, or any other entity we talk about. Before we hop into anything for today, I wanted to give a shout out, a thank you to everyone who listened to the last episode. A lot of feedback, a lot of helpful feedback. So thank you. We'll get into that in a second. I just wanted to say, again, my name's Adam Crosby. I'm going to be your host. Where you can find me or this podcast, you can find it on Spotify, YouTube, which was incredibly hard to figure out. Had to create a video from last episode with a still image. What a mess. I'm technically challenged. So you can find us on Spotify, the Table 2 Ticket, YouTube as well. You can email the Table 2 Ticket at gmail.com, or you can join the Facebook group, the Table 2 Ticket. I wanted to say thank you to everyone that listened. The feedback was great. Let's go over a couple of the pieces of feedback so we can correct them. First and foremost, everyone said the mic quality was good. That's great. So shout out to Andy for letting me borrow his microphone. Unfortunately, they said it was so good that they could hear me take a cough drop and eat that cough drop on mic. And I knew that was going to happen, but I didn't see a way to prevent it. I'm a city carrier, as you all know. Most city carriers, the majority of the talking that we do is going to be in our own heads. Right? We walk around all day. We just talk to ourselves in our heads. Occasionally, maybe I'll have a 2-3 minute conversation with a customer, but generally we talk in our heads. So my throat is not accustomed to talking for an hour straight. I'll work on it. I will try not to take a cough drop, but I can't guarantee anything. So apologies if I have to. I'm also down here in the basement, if you couldn't tell. Whatever's floating around down here occasionally bothers me. It is what it is. Another piece of feedback was that there was no live arbitration. So I don't know if I have to correct this. I'm not sure if I insinuated that there was a live DOS arbitration panel. I referred to the pieces that were submitted to the arbitration panel as submissions as opposed to briefs. They were briefs submitted to the arbitration panel. I don't remember why there wasn't an actual live arbitration, but that is correct. There was no live arbitration. If I insinuated that there was, that's on me. I was also told that I need chapters, right? I need structure. I need precision. And I rambled a bit in the last episode. Unfortunately, the first episode of any podcast is going to be an overview, and there's so many things to talk about with the NALC that I didn't know. My brain just rambles, right? I'm pretty sure I have some undiagnosed ADHD. My brain goes in every different direction at all times. So I apologize. We're going to add more structure. We're going to add put a little more effort into an outline so that we don't wander as much. So apologies for that. We will work on it. I was also told through feedback that I need a schedule, right? So here's the schedule. We're going to try and record things on Wednesdays and release them on Thursdays. We will also be trying to have a Zoom call on Friday evenings. And that's probably not going to be popular, but I figured, might as well start there. Shout out to BFN, right? BFN out there is creating infrastructure to activate the rank and file membership. I had no idea, right? Last episode, I talked about having a Zoom meeting. I have no one to tell about that Zoom meeting. I can put it on this podcast, whatever, but then there's nowhere to update members except for Facebook and whatnot. But it occurred to me how important the infrastructure to educate or to inform carriers is going to be. So shout out to them. So that's the schedule. Record on Wednesdays, release on Thursdays, and hopefully have Zoom meetings or a Zoom meeting on Friday evenings. And that will make on Facebook. I think we'll announce that on Facebook and make sure that, that information's out there. Next piece of feedback was the question, am I running? I know I did not say that with a lot of conviction last episode. that's a complicated question, right? Obviously, the name of this podcast is the Table 2 Ticket. We intend to form a national ticket. However, I do find a conflict of interest when you form a ticket, right? It's the republic style of governing, and it creates conflicts of interest, and you'll see that in our current NALC structure, right? The executive council is supposed to be the check, right? Checks and balances. The executive council is supposed to be the check on our president's power to keep him in line if he decides he's going to A, go it alone, or B, violate our Constitution. We've seen recently that the executive council, who, of course, runs on the president's ticket, or has in the past anyways, that created a conflict of interest. Essentially, when you run on someone's ticket, you owe your job to the leadership of that ticket. And so I'm adversely opposed to having an actual ticket. And I am full-on pro-democracy. So what I'm going to suggest is that this podcast is going to form a ticket, but it's not going to be a typical national ticket. It's just going to be a list of names. And then before the next national convention, we will poll the rank and file in a true democratic form, and see who they want to run for which position. If people end up polling, or if they decide that they want me to run for president, then that's what I'll do, assuming that the person they want to run for each position accepts that responsibility in that position. Fine, then that's what we'll do. But I think that's more democratic, to have the rank and file actually give them a voice and let them pick who they want running for what. So as far as the structure, people said we needed chapters, structure, and more precision, be more precise and don't wander too much. In that concept, what we're going to do is we are going to have a layout for each episode moving forward. It's going to be 6 different sections. First is going to be essentially the state of the ticket and the podcast. That'll include what I just went over, any feedback, any corrections that we have to make. Anyone who's joined this movement, the Table 2 Ticket, and wants their name out there as a potential officer of the national board of some kind. So that's section 1, the state of the ticket of the podcast. Next is going to be the main topic. Each episode is going to have a main topic. It was originally going to be this week. It was originally going to be the structure of the NALC and how it's republic and not very democratic at the moment. Unfortunately, then I went on Facebook and I saw, I think Brian Renfro released or made a post, and then there was a bunch of comments. He made a post on retirement. Then there was a bunch of Table 2 commenters, and then there were Table 1 commenters saying the things that they always say. So this week's main topic is actually going to be calling out Table 1. So you have the main topic, and then you're going to have another section called a review. We're going to review either another group, right? Another movement, another podcast, or the current regime. We're going to do a review on something. Generally speaking, for the probably the first couple episodes, it'll be a review of the current regime in some form or fashion, because, well, the whole reason we're forming a ticket is because we disagree with the current regime's everything. Another section is going to be an interview, right? Like I said, we're trying to have conversations on this podcast. So we're going to be interviewing people, hopefully rank and file members. If not rank and file members, and other people running for office. I don't know. It's just going to be another version of getting our thoughts out there, but hearing other people's thoughts, because that's kind of the whole concept of democracy, right? You have to listen to people. You have to listen to the rank and file. So the 4th section is going to be an interview. We're skipping that for this week because it's going to get, our main topic is going to be a little spicy. We're going to be a bit aggressive. And so I didn't want to have someone on and do an interview real quick and then have them tied to the aggressive main topic. I think most stewards know that being a steward, you put a target on your back. This podcast episode is going to put a target on my back. I'm fully aware of that. and that's okay. I didn't want to have someone on as an interviewee and have them also put a target on their back for no other reason than they're tied to this podcast, and it just happened to be an aggressive episode that they came on. The last two sections of each podcast are going to be pretty light. One is going to be a statement to the public, and one is going to be a statement to the USPS. Simple things. All right. Statement to the public could be anything. We don't take tax dollars. I don't know. So those are two lighthearted ones at the end of each episode that we'll have as the fifth and sixth sections of each podcast. So let's hop into it. Let's hop into the main topic, calling out Table 1. Like I said, it wasn't the plan. We were going to do the structure of the NALC and how it's broken and how it needs to reform. But went on Facebook and saw some negative comments that you see all the time, and as Table 2 carriers, we hear them all the time. So we're gonna hit those pretty hard. When you talk about the strength of the union, it's the members, right? Some of the people at the top, they like to pretend. Actually, even on your lower levels, branch presidents even like to pretend that they are the ones. They are the union. They are the power of the union. Really, all the power of the union comes from the membership, the rank and file. Because the power comes from the rank and file also has an obligation. I know Ron Speakman goes into this quite a bit. We have an obligation and responsibility to make sure the union does its job. Like that eventually falls on us. If the union is not doing its job, it falls on the rank and file to hold them accountable. We have an obligation to be educated as a rank and file on everything, right? We elect these individuals to represent us. We should be educated on what their platforms are, what their philosophies are. We should be educated on all that. We should be educated on the rules governing our union. As the rank and file, you have the ability to determine the rules, the bargaining positions, pretty much everything within the union, who holds power, everything. And so with that power to control everything, you also have that obligation. You have an obligation and a responsibility to uphold union values. In 2013, 2016, and 2019, Table 1 did not do that, right? They did not uphold union values. A Table 2, a two-tier pay scale, is not upholding union values. And you also didn't do it, or you didn't do it in 2013, 2016, 2019, but you also don't do it now when you go on to social media or in public or at your workplace and you belittle or you berate Table 2 carriers because they complain about their situation. Period. You did not uphold your responsibility, your obligations. You did not fulfill those. And so we're going to call you out. And this main topic is basically going to be a lot of the phrases that Table 2 hears from Table 1. We're gonna hit those phrases. We're going to examine them, and then we're going to rip them apart because they're stupid. First phrase: put in your time. Okay, put in my time. I know there's a lot of people say that. Ooh. A lot of people say, lost everything. Let's back up a little bit. Maybe. I don't know. Can we pause? I don't think we can pause. Sorry. Technical difficulties. Lost camera for a second there. So let's get back to it. Put in your time. I know a lot of people say that the younger generation has no interest in putting in your time. I know people online say they want to be at top pay. This was a conversation the other day on Facebook. They want to be at top pay immediately. No, we have no problem putting in our time, right? We understand when we join, it's a 30, 35-year career. That's what we're interested in. That's why we joined. We have no problem putting in our time, right? The problem we have as Table 2 carriers is that we can put in the exact same amount of time as you. We can put in the same 35 years as you, and we're going to earn $300,000 to $400,000 less. It has nothing to do with the time, right? It has to do with the fact that you value our time less. That's problematic. So yeah, Putting in your time makes no sense. We have no problem putting in our time. You just don't comprehend that our time has been valued at a much significantly lower amount. Phrase number 2, wait your turn, or you'll get there eventually. There are no turns, right? You don't just automatically have a turn as far as positions of power go simply because you were hired earlier, right? We should want the most qualified, or at least the most capable leaders. So there's it's not, as far as leaders go, leadership, there's no turn, right? That's just silly. You'll get there eventually. The problem with that, when you're talking pay, let's say you're talking about top pay, for example, we won't, right? You'll get there eventually. Your top pay is going to be 3.6% higher than our top pay because of what we have to put into our FERS versus what you have to put in. You put in $600 at top pay. We put in $3,600 at top pay. So no, we will eventually not get there. We will always, forever be behind because we put in way more into FERS. Phrase number 3 or 4, we all went through it, right? We all got abused as part-timers. Okay, sure. We all got abused as part-timers. Yeah, that's true. The problem is we got abused and we got paid significantly less. That's the difference. We all went through it. No, we all did not go through the table 2 pay scale. We did all not struggle on the table 2 pay scale. Only we did that. Another popular phrase, go somewhere else, right? When table 2 likes to speak up and we try to fix the union, we try to get what I think we rightfully deserve, which is table 1 pay, simply because we're in the same union, right? We pay the same dues. There's absolutely no reason we should not be on the same pay scale. There's no reason that we should not be entitled to the same career earnings that you are. And so when we bring that up, a lot of table 1 carriers say, well, just go somewhere else. Go find a job where you're going to be appreciated and earn what you expect. I like to go back in time in my head and pretend that I'm talking to a bunch of guys in New York City about to go on a wildcat strike in 1970, right? A wildcat strike that entitled all of table 1, right? Through their efforts, through their sacrifice, it entitled all of table 1 to the career that they currently get, right? Their pay structure, they owe that to the wildcat strikers in 1970. Go back in time, and instead of telling them you should go on strike because you deserve better, you should just tell them, just go somewhere else. Go find a different job. That's so silly, right? You owe your entire career to those guys. Imagine telling them just to go somewhere else because we wanted better. What a foolish concept. Tied to that is be happy you have a job at all. I don't even know what to say about that. Be happy you have a job at all. Okay. Sure. Be happy you have a job at all, even though I'm telling you your time and your job is worth less than the exact same job a couple of years ahead of you, right? Be happy you have a job at all. I just don't know how to answer that. Okay, thanks. I will. You've got it easy, right? This whole concept of back in the good old days, we used to walk uphill both ways in the snow. We do not have it easy. A carrier's job is difficult for if you were hired in 2011, if you were hired in 2015. Our job is incredibly difficult. It is physically demanding. It is mentally straining. It is not easy at any point, right? If anything, it's gotten harder. We are tracked every second of the day. Right? I know some of you old timers used to go and hang out at the bar for an hour or go mow your yard and do all kinds of stuff because you weren't tracked every freaking second of the day. We are. So yeah, this concept of we have it easy now. No, we don't. We used to have 12 trays of DPS. Okay, now we have 45 packages more, 100 packages more. On top of that, you'll notice in the individual offices, right, we take over the routes that you got off of. Right? I'm on City One. There's a reason I'm on City One as a more junior carrier, and the senior carriers are not on City One. It's because they didn't want it. Why didn't they want it? Because it's more difficult, right? As your seniority goes up, you don't go to jobs that are more difficult. You go to the easier ones. And so, yeah, this concept that we've got it easy because delivering mail used to be harder. Okay. I don't remember them going out and attacking or kidnapping or robbing at gunpoint or killing carriers. I don't remember it being that big an issue back in the day, but sure, I'm sure we've got it easy. Another concept from back in the day, it's usually more specific. So we'll use an example. I made $10 an hour when I started. Okay. Simple concept here is you don't understand inflation. Yes, you made $10 an hour when you started. That's great. A car back in that day probably cost you $1,000, right? A house was probably $50,000. And so your $10 an hour back then, you cannot just equate it to today's economy and say, hey, you make double what I started at. No, your purchasing power was more than ours is now. And that's how inflation works, right? Your $10 an hour in let's go to 1979. I don't know what the pay scales were back then. Your $10 an hour back then purchased about $30 an hour today, right? Because our houses are 3 times as expensive, our cars are 3 times as expensive. Inflation does that. So yeah, this concept that you can just say, hey, I made this much back when I started, it's completely different because of inflation. I like this one. You got to pull yourselves up by your bootstraps. So this conflicts with the first couple, right? If I should just go somewhere else or quit or be happy I have a job at all, then how can I pull myself up by my bootstraps, right? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to fight for what we think we deserve, which is the same that you deserved, apparently. We're trying to better ourselves. That's what pulling yourself up by your bootstraps is, right? You're trying to better your career, your life. You're trying to fight for things that you deserve. We can't do that and then also go somewhere else. So that's exactly what we're trying to do. We are not just sitting around on internet cafe, internet websites and just complaining. There are people out there. There are table 2 carriers that are creating movements, right? We're not just sitting around complaining. We are actually doing work. This last one is one of the ones I take issue with the most, right? We'll get into it. It's you need to unite, right? We're a union. You need table 1 telling table 2 carriers, you need to unite. You're being divisive. Personally, no, I don't think we're being divisive. All we're doing is talking about divisive policy that this union has not only accepted but endorsed. We are not being divisive. We're just talking about that thing. We're trying to fix that thing, actually, right? So I know a lot of people consider me divisive because I talk about divisive issues, divisive policies. I think I'm one of the most pro-union carriers out there. Right? I'm not divisive because I talk about the difference between table 1 and table 2. I'm trying to fix that gap. That makes me pro-union because a real union, right, isn't going to have that gap. They're not going to have that tier 2. So yeah, I'd say I'm the most pro-union one out there. When you say we need to unite, when table 1 tells you you need to unite, the problem I have with that, and you'll find that my platform or our platform has a lot of similarities with BFN, right? Our platform's very similar. All career workforce. They say $30 an hour starting pay. I say table 1, which is basically $30 an hour. More democratic union. There's a lot we're going to have on the same platform. The difference is I'm not going to be, I'd like to use the term kumbaya, right? I'm not going to find common ground with table 1 and try and unite with them with that common ground and then try and make changes that way, because I don't think it hasn't worked out well, right? Over the last 13 years, when a Table 1 carrier says you need to unite, you're being divisive, what they actually mean is you need to set aside your priorities as a Table 2 carrier, set aside all that you need, all your demands, all your priorities, and you need to join them on their priorities, right? That's how they want you to unite. They want you to set aside all your issues, all your grievances, join them, and fight for their priorities, right? That's why you see over the last couple contracts, the last two, I believe, see $1,000, right, added on to the top of the pay scale. Guess what? That's Table 1. In my office, we had Table 1 carriers complaining that we voted against the contract because they wanted that $1,000. Those are their priorities. So the last contract got them $1,000. It got Table 2 nothing, except for if you were a CCA or PTF that was going to have the first couple legs cut off of the pay scale. But the majority of Table 2, it got nothing, right? So we set our priorities aside, we joined them, and they got their priorities. The contract before that, right, they added a step. They added a step to the top of the pay scale. Who's that benefit? Oh, yeah, again, that's right, it's Table 1. When they added a step to the top of the pay scale, it actually hurt everyone on Table 2. Right? You increase top pay, that decreases all the other steps and their percentage of top step. And of course, your cost of living adjustment is based on that percentage. So now your cost of living just went down because they added another step. On top of that, it added, I don't know, several months, right? It went from 12.4 to 13.2 years. So 8 months, 10 months, something like that. Yeah. How do we, right? So that's what they mean when they say you need to unite. You need to put down your priorities and stop trying to get back the wages that we handed over, and you need to join us and vote for this contract that gives us another pay step. Okay, you're already maxed out. I'm not interested in uniting with you. I'm not going to find common ground with you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fight on behalf of Table 2 to get us all on the same pay scale. Once we're a union again and we're all on the same pay scale, then we can unite. Then we can fight on common ground issues. Until then, no, I'm not going to set our priorities down. I'm not going to pause our issues. So that's one of the ones I dislike the most is you need to unite. I hear it all the time. It's baffling. I get it. I mean, I get it. We're a union. Yeah, we need to unite. Unfortunately, we're not a union right now. When you accepted the two-tier pay scale and then you endorsed it, we stopped being a union. So really, yeah, uniting is not going to work. Oh, with that being said, this is going to be where things get a little aggressive, a little spicy. I'm going to make a statement, and it's not going to be very popular. It'll be, a lot of people are going to say it's divisive. Preamble to that. I'm going to reserve the right to apologize and would rescind this statement on an individual basis, assuming someone will come on here and show me some receipts or simply take accountability for not doing anything to stand up for Table 2 in 2013, 2016, 2019. Take accountability for that. So if you do that, if you come on here, you show me some receipts from 2013 where you held a rally in response to the gutting from the DOS arbitration panel. If you show me a receipt that shows you held a rally, did something in 2016, rallying against that contract that upheld and then endorsed the two-tier pay scale, I will rescind and apologize. I don't expect that to happen, right? I've talked to a couple people. None of them have provided receipts. I don't expect anyone to. But what you can do is you can take accountability for it, right? Come on here and say, you're right. We did nothing. We did not stand up for you. And I'll accept that, right? I think there's a lot of alpha male energy or alpha energy out there right now that thinks you're not allowed to admit that you did wrong. I think that's foolish. I think one of the most visual instances of strength is when you can admit that you were wrong, right? I know James Henry likes to say the best ability is accountability. I think something to that phrase. And never seen him take accountability for not standing up for carriers on Table 2. In the establishment for a long time, I don't recall him showing me any receipts that he stood up for Table 2. I know there was a conversation on Facebook not too long ago. He recorded a podcast, or he recorded that he was in a video. Someone else recorded him. And he said specifically, I'm going to paraphrase, actually, not specifically. I'm paraphrasing. If you see something being done that you consider wrong, right, and you're in a position to speak out against it, and you do nothing, then you are as wrong as the wrong itself. Let's tackle each one of those. If you see something being done that you consider wrong, I don't know, gutting the city carrier craft, destroying their wages, creating a 2-tier pay scale, I consider that wrong. And you're in a position to speak out against it. That doesn't take much, right? Everyone with 2 lips or 2, I guess you could use your fingers. You can type out against it. So everyone in a union is in a position to speak out against it. And you do nothing, which I've seen 0 receipts for anyone doing anything, then you are as wrong itself. It's self-explanatory. If you did not speak out against the DAS arbitration panel or against the 2016 and 2019 contracts, you are as wrong as the wrong itself. With that in mind, here comes the statement. Table 1 carriers are cowards, sellouts, and hypocrites. I'll explain. Cowards. You had the chance to stand up for your brothers and sisters. You didn't. Period. In 2013, you had the chance to fight against the DAS arbitration panel. You didn't. Right? You walked into a career whose pay and benefits were fought by the generation before you in the Wildcat strike. They got those pay. They got that pay scale. They got those benefits. You walked into those jobs, right? All you had to do was take a little test. You walked into those jobs. And when it came time to fight for the next generation of carriers, you said, no, we're good. That's cowardly. It's the same as the being a sellout, right? Not only did you not stand up for us, the whole concept was the post office is going under. And it came your chance to stand up for us, and you said, no, actually, we'll keep our benefits, our pay scale, take it out on the next generation. That's a sellout. Hypocrites. Every day, right? We walk into work as union members, as brothers and sisters in a union, and people will call us, other union members will call you brother, sister, and then they will endorse a 2-tier pay scale that says you are worth $400,000 less than they are. That's hypocritical, right? Not only are you a union member in the same union, but they call you brother, they call you sister, and then they tell you you are worth less than they are. So again, cowards, sellouts, hypocrites. I invite anyone on this podcast to come on here and show me some receipts from back in the day when they stood up for Table 2, when Table 2 had no voice. Come on here and show up that they stood up against the DAS award, stood up for TEs. You're invited. I haven't seen many receipts. I haven't seen anyone produce anything yet, and I've seen nobody take accountability. All we ever get are excuses. But if you want to do that, you're more than welcome. Unless you're Brian Renfro. You are never welcome on my podcast. We'll get into that next. So that was the main topic there, the calling out Table 1. You've been called out. Now we're going to hop in on the review section of the podcast. This week we are reviewing, and it's going to be down and dirty, right? I was doing an outline, it got a little chaotic, but it's going to be a mess. We're going to be reviewing quickly the next generation carriers and their podcast episode where they hosted Brian Renfro. So first and foremost, that podcast, I think it was a couple weeks old, maybe a couple weeks ago. First and foremost, shout out to next generation carriers. What you're doing is great. I applaud you. I appreciate you. Thank you for what you're doing. I did not expect. I thought you guys would be more like this podcast, right? When you say next generation carriers, I expect a podcast of the next generation carriers. I didn't realize some of you were going to be 20-year vets. I didn't realize some of you were going to be branch presidents. But still, a shout out to you. I love what you're doing. Keep it up. Thank you. As far as the podcast where you decided to host Brian Renfro for a second time, some advice: don't do that. Like I said, Brian Renfro will never be on this podcast. I understand your reasoning. I get it. You're trying to host rallies, right? You're trying to get support. You think Brian Renfro would be an asset to that. Right? You think these rallies that you want to host to put public pressure on the USPS to give us a better contract. I understand that. And you think you can use his resources, you can use him, and you can get his support, and he will increase those rallies, increase the potency of that pressure on the USPS. There's a number of different issues with that. But right off the bat, I think we all know, or I guess maybe not, maybe people disagree. Brian Renfro is corrupt, right? And there's many different forms of corruption. I'm not accusing Brian Renfro of going out and embezzling money, not that kind of corrupt, but there's a lot of different forms of corrupt. He's not embezzling, as far as I know. He's not embezzling. I do consider it stealing, though, when you take a position, and that job's position is to represent an entire group of city carriers. You take their money, you take their dues, you were hired for this position, and then you do the opposite, right? Instead of representing carriers, you focus on representing the post office, and you focus on, you literally hand the post office contracts that harm the people that you're actually supposed to be representing. So you took our money, and then you didn't represent us, and you represented the post office instead. That's stealing. That's corruption, in my opinion. That's all. So I'm assuming, right? And then you had a tentative agreement that we shut down. We voted against, and you shoved that down our throats anyways. That's corruption, right? That's blatantly ignoring the Constitution. You took it to a mediation session. You called it a mediation session yourself. You said before the arbitration mediation session, you said it was going to be a combination arbitration mediation session. So it's a mediation session. You agreed to a mediation, and that was not voted on. That's ignoring our Constitution, and that's corruption. So that's the advice. Do not give Brian Renfro a platform. When you give him a platform, another microphone, to reach a larger audience, you're doing a disservice to everyone, because everything that he says is going to be a lie of some kind, is going to be manipulation to further his interests. And his interests are the post office and probably staying in his very lofty pay structure at the moment. So please do not give him a platform. I don't want him reaching a bigger audience. I don't want him having the ability to manipulate and lie to more people. On top of that, when you put him on your platform, when you host him, you're giving him credibility, right? Just by being on your platform, now he's got even more credibility with your entire audience. That's not good. He is a threat, and he's a threat to the NALC. He is a threat to Table 2. He is a threat to all carriers. Please do not host him again. Again, he'll never be on this podcast. I consider myself pretty open-minded. I'll have a conversation with pretty much anyone. Any of the other movements out there, even though I just called out Table 1 carriers, any Table 1 carrier, they're more than welcome to come on, have a conversation with me. I'm okay with that. But Brian Renfro has been proven to be such a liar and manipulator that I have no interest in furthering any of his ideas. Right? I will not give him the time. With that said, right, I understand the next generation carriers desire to have him on, right? They think they need him to further their rallies. There's a couple problems with him giving support to your rallies. He's going to hijack any rally that you have, right? He's going to use it as a campaigning photo op or a Fight Like Hell rally. He's going to hijack it and put Fight Like Hell on there. And of course, Fight Like Hell is not a carrier-driven rally. A Fight Like Hell rally is Brian Renfro fighting like hell to save the post office. That's the concept of Fight Like Hell, right? Don't privatize the post office. That's Fight Like Hell. His mindset is to help the post office. It always has been since 2013. The DOS award was to help the post office. Every contract after that has been to help the post office. He will hijack your rally and turn it into a Fight Like Hell rally, whose single issue is going to be helping the post office. Don't let him do that. If I could, I understand it would be incredibly difficult, but my suggestion would be, I know Chris kept asking him about a date. Tell him you're having a rally. Tell him, as the rank and file members, tell him you're having a rally on February 22nd. Tell him you would love to have his funds, right? And to put out the information publicly, to put out the information to the membership. Don't allow him to take control of it. Give him credit for it. This is a rank and file rally to put pressure for a better contract. That's what this is. Another reason that letting him, be part of your contract rallies is problematic is because Brian has proven, right? The whole concept of these rallies is to put pressure on the USPS, put leverage, right? To gain leverage by putting pressure on the USPS to get a better contract. Brian has told us multiple times. He's shown us that he doesn't care about that leverage. He had all the leverage in the last contract, right? We had gone through COVID. We were essential employees. We delivered tests. The whole world was shut down, and we were still out there every single day. We didn't get hazard pay, right? Carriers died. There were bills in Congress to pay us $25,000 on top of our salary because we were essential and we were out there continuing to deliver packages so that people didn't have to go out there and get sick. We had all the leverage. The result of that was Brian Renfro delaying, right? Delaying our contract negotiations so long that leverage disappeared. Long enough so that leverage was gone, and then he could get a good contract for the post office. Again, his mindset is to help the post office. So he's shown you multiple times that he does not care about that leverage. So when you hold a rally and you put pressure on the post office and you gain leverage over them because you have public pressure on them, he doesn't care about that. So that's a problem with you having him a part of your rally. So now we'll actually get into a review of the conversation you guys had with Brian Renfro. We'll talk about, or we'll get into a review of what the next generation carriers, their conversation with Brian Renfro. Again, it's going to be a bit of a mess. My brain, 10,000 directions. I was trying to take timestamps of their conversation. I listened to their conversation 3 times. It's more than 2 hours. I'm burnt from listening to their conversation. I tried to quote them as accurately. I'm not going to be able to. I'm going to paraphrase pretty much everything they say. Trying to listen to a podcast and take notes at the same time, it's incredibly difficult. So anyone that does that, props to you. We'll start off. John Murphy, right off the bat, 11 minutes in, starts talking about the changing of the mindset, right? The union, the mindset that the union is a few elected officers, and that we need to change that mindset, right? We have to be more rank and file unionism. Good, very good, John Murphy. Props on that. You are correct. That is what this movement is as well. More democracy, more rank and file say in everything. Rank and file unionism, that's where our strength is. We need to use it. So good on John Murphy for mentioning that. At about 17 minutes, Brian Renfro talks about the single issues, right? He's talking about contract rallies and how they've had them in the past. And I don't know if that's where Margot asked specifically, like, what are our topics going to be? What are our signs going to say? But Brian Renfro was talking about multiple rallies that they've had in the past. I'm in a basement. I don't know if there's a mouse back there. It's sketchy. Chill. Sorry. So I don't know. Again, what brought this up, I can't remember. But Brian Renfro was talking about these massive rallies that they've had in the past, and they were all single issue, right? In 2007, he was talking about how they were worried about subcontracting, and so they had a massive rally, blah blah blah, and the single issue was the subcontracting, and they got that out. And there was another one later on with I don't know, some specific, I think Postmaster General held a big rally and they got him kicked out. So he's talking about all these single issue rallies. Keep that in mind, because that's mentioned probably like 15 times throughout this podcast. Single issue events, single issue rallies, right? This is what I'm talking about when I say Brian Renfro is going to hijack your rally. We already know what his single issue is, right? That's the whole fight like hell concept. It's a single issue. Save the post office. Not your contract, not your wages, not anything for table 2. Save the post office. We know what his single issue is. He mentions it dozens of times throughout this. Oh, well, a single issue might pop up. Okay. So that's 17 minutes in. 18 minutes in. Things we are planning to do, right? This also comes up many times from Brian. Things we're planning to do, things we're doing, things we're gonna do. Right? When the Next Generation Carriers first hosted him in their first conversation with Brian lied so many times, but he does it. He's very good at it, right? He's a very intelligent human being. When he lies, they're all not current lies, right? Going to reach a contract in 2 weeks. Yeah, well, 2 weeks goes by. That's a lie. Says 2 weeks again. Well, 2 weeks goes by. That's a lie. He lies by telling you things we're doing or going to do in the future. Those things never happen. But at the time, like, all he's doing is saying, yeah, we're working on it. We're doing it now. So at 18 minutes, he starts talking about things we're going to do in January, or more likely February and beyond, right? Huge rallies with more than a few months to prepare. The math on that's not checking out. It ain't mathing. If you're trying to do things in January, like huge rallies, and you're saying it's going to be a few months to prepare, it's November, December, January. That doesn't work. That's not a few months. On top of that, if you're talking about holding rallies in February or January or whatever on contract negotiations, if you want to put pressure on the post office for a better contract, right? Why haven't you done anything to set a date yet? Right, I know Chris kept pushing it. Set a date. We need a date. You've had a very long time to decide on a date that you're going to hold a rally and put pressure on the post office. On top of that, Brian Renfro is the one who decided when the contract was going to run out, right? The TA would have gone to November. Brian Renfro saw us vote it down and said, well, shoot, let's go to arbitration. Let's shorten that contract so that I can negotiate the next contract. And so he chose when that contract was going to run out. You would think, since he chose when that contract was going to run out, he would pick a date to start holding rallies, to put pressure on the next contract, that whose starting date he chose, or, the expiration date of the previous one he chose. So he could do that. Again, this goes back to the mindset that he doesn't want to do that. He does not want to put pressure on the post office. At 2025, we have the most active membership, right? This is Brian Renfro. John Murphy calls him out and says people are leaving the union. And Brian Renfro says, no, we have the most active membership. I think that's where the conversation went. Disagree. I mentioned this in the first podcast. An active membership is not simply a membership that pays dues. Right? That doesn't mean you're active. Just because you pay dues does not make you active. So I consider that false, right? An active membership is a membership that participates. Simply paying dues is just like we feel obligated. We're not active. My branch, we have, like I mentioned, we have less than 1% of people show up to our meetings. That's not active. They all pay dues, but they're not active. We at the Labor Day parade a couple years ago, we had, I think, 9 people show up out of 1,800. 9 people showed up for a parade. That's not active. Further on, we are doing more, right? This is paraphrasing. I'm not quoting because I'm not quick enough at typing and listening at the same time. My brain can't multitask, I guess. I don't know. We are doing more than ever before to make sure everyone has the ability to have input. This is referring to his rank and file committees. The farce that's known as rank and file committees. The rank and file committees, he talks about it earlier on when he says we're looking at doing things in January and February. He lays out later in this podcast how the structure is, right? The rank and file committees get together. Those rank and file committees then tell the executive council committees their input. Okay. And then we're going to have another rank and file committee, and then that rank and file committee will also tell the executive council their input. Later on in this podcast, Brian Renfro says, and then when all that's done, we're going to send out a survey to every active member. Wait, okay. So you have a rank and file committee that tells the executive council what the priorities are, and then you do it again. So the executive council has all our priorities right here. And then after they have all our priorities, you're going to send out a survey to all the rank and file active members. Okay. You probably should have done that part first, right? Maybe do that ahead of time. But again, he does not care about the rank and file. He doesn't want to hear your opinions. He tells the executive council what the opinions are. He tells them what the priorities are. He doesn't want to hear from you. This survey, we'll get into it later because it's later in the podcast. Follow the notes, Crosby. Structure. Cool. But again, we are doing more than ever before to make sure everyone has the ability to have input. That's just false, right? Everything he's doing to pretend that we have input is not correct. It's not actually happening, right? Those rank and file committees are not actually rank and file committees. Shortly after that, 20 minutes and 10 seconds, Chris says, I like the rank and file committee. We are all, I think we're all happy to see that. Chris, my brother, these are fake, right? Rank and file committees made up of non-rank and file members, right? That's like Brian Renfro saying he's the rank and file. No, a rank and file member is a general member who is not a leader. When you handpick rank and file committee members and you choose presidents and contract enforcers and people that work at National, those are not rank and file members. Okay. Period. So, not trying to call you out, Chris, but please don't say, I think we're all happy to see that. Unless all of us is just you, and I guess maybe the other guys are too. In theory, right? I understand. In theory, we should all be happy about the rank and file committees. Unfortunately, it's just manipulation. Right? He brings people in, he indoctrinates them, he sends them back, and he calls it a rank and file committee, and then they spread the concept of concessions and limited pie to the rest of the membership, and that's indoctrination, right? You wine them, dine, you bring them in, you call them special. You're now rank and file committee members, and then they go home and they spread all that crap. The concept's good. It's not. The application's bad. 24 minutes and 20 seconds, somewhere around there. Chris had complained that National didn't help with the Boston rally. Yeah, outside of getting some shirts and signs. And Brian responds by saying, "We gave." I'm not sure if there was a misunderstanding. We gave all the information. And I was like, I just don't understand. Chris is complaining that you did not help them structurally, right? You did not help them with funds. You did not help them organize. You put all the information out there. Who cares about the information? Right? You did not organize. You did not help. That's all. Later on, Brian talks about educating the public, right? Hear from the public and to demonstrate our value. And that's very important. Just like last time, I don't understand. Last time, we did not want the public involved. I know he actually counteracts this, contradicts this multiple times. He says, it's further down, structure. But he does talk about multiple times, because that's what rallies are: educating the public, activating the public to demonstrate our value, and or to they already know our value, but they need to voice it in the form of compensation. We did not do that last time, so yeah, I don't expect. Yeah, this old dog ain't gonna learn new tricks. He also says demonstrate our value, and we should be compensated. I don't understand this. He just throws in whatever way that is. What? Okay. How about cash? That sounds good. Margot. Hope I'm saying all these names right, by the way. I love your questions. Your questions are direct. Very good. What will our demands be, essentially? And I think Brian Renfro responds by saying, well, the rallies are going to be under the Fight Like Hell banner. Again, you've been hijacked. He also brings up, again, the single issue. He does say, I cannot anticipate a single issue that we would have. We already know your single issue. We already know that you want to help the post office. That's always been your issue. Fight Like Hell, that is their issue. At 41, Greg says, everyone keeps saying $30 an hour. I think the membership would be happy with that. And Brian responds by saying, I think it needs to be higher than that. Okay, then why did you agree to a contract that was insanely, right, significantly lower? Oh, I think it needs to be higher than $30 an hour. You already agreed to a contract that said it was like $20 an hour. Explain to me how you think it should be higher than that. Okay, I guess do as I say, not as I do. I don't know. You clearly didn't think it should be $30 an hour because you agreed to a contract that had it at $20 an hour. But yes, this is a problem. You give this man a platform, he will say stuff. And people will be like, yeah, Brian Renfro says we should have more than $30 an hour. Okay, that doesn't mean he's going to negotiate on that. It doesn't mean he's going to push that at negotiations. Do not listen to him. 48 on surveys. We're doing it. I wrote about it 2 months ago in the Postal Record. We've tried to get, this is paraphrasing, we've tried to dig really deep into getting input from the rank and file. This concept of the surveys, we're doing it. I hear this a lot. And again, this refers to the lies because they haven't happened yet. They're not lies, but they will be. We're doing it. Okay. Why haven't you done it? Again, you did the committee, the rank and file committees, you did the executive committees. Why would you not hear from the rank and file before you do any of that? Right? It's always because we have to. I guarantee, right? It's because first you're going to hear from the rank and file, then you're going to hear from the executive council, and then those people are going to make the surveys. And so when you're asking for input from the rank and file, what you're really doing is you're giving them options, right? These are your options. We've already decided on your options. This is the old school concept of, and politicians, you can, I don't know who said it first, but basically it's, you can pick the winner as long as I can pick the candidates, right? The executive council, with their decision, their input from this fake rank and file committees, they're going to make a survey and give you limited options. And that survey, just like the Postal Pulse survey, right? This man, I'm telling you, he's a smart man. He's learned a lot. He knows how to manipulate things. Just like the Postal Pulse survey, the survey is going to be tainted. Later on, talks about all the rank and file committees, and as I said. And then after that, he says, after all of that, we'll have the surveys sent out to every active member. You got your order wrong. You got the power structure wrong. It goes rank and file committee. That, like, rank and file. That's where the power is. You're deciding things up top, and then you're sending all that information down. You're deciding things up top, and then you're pushing those decisions onto the rank and file. Should go the opposite direction. 56, I think it's James. Message. Oh, what message would you give to the branches to get members active, right? And Brian responds, well, you got to start by being brutally honest with them. This is some fear mongering, right? What's at stake? You got to tell the members what's at stake. That's how you get them activated. You got to be brutally honest and tell them the situation, right? The financial situation of the post office. You got to tell them that, and you got to tell them what's at stake. That's how you're going to activate them. So you're going to activate them with fear. And then again, he brings up this single issue over and over again. The single issue. At 1 hour, Brian's talking about, I think maybe Margot asked him again. Don't recall. But he's talking about how we never tried, right? In the last contract negotiations, we didn't try and hide anything, right? He says we were just trying to keep Congress's nose out of it. I think he also says, I think we would be very open about it. That's paraphrasing. That's all paraphrasing again. I think the membership would disagree, right? We've never tried to hide what we want. You wouldn't even tell your own members what we wanted. You wouldn't tell the priority list to the membership. Don't tell me that you weren't trying to hide it from the public. You hid it from the members. That's just bull. He goes on to talk about how every SurePost package costs the post office money. I'll tell you what that sounds like. That sounds like management, right? You're not management. The fact that you think, or that you believe, or that you somehow have the information that every single SurePost package costs the post office money, that's management. That's management's job. He also goes on to say we need to keep an eye on that and we need to be involved in that. No, we don't. The post office, and Brian mentions this later on, it's poorly run. That's management's fault. Change your mindset. It is not the union's position. It is not our job, our obligation to save them. At 109, Brian, this is, if you think about this logically, it makes sense, right? The more money that they have, the post office, the better contract that we will get. And he calls it fact. That's fact. He says that's how this works. That's how it works in the private sector. We have to be involved in that front. Wrong. Right. I think it was a Fleshly Award specifically said, or basically said that the financial situation of the post office, better or worse, does not result in a better or worse contract for the post or for the NALC. This concept, logically, yes, if they have more money, you should be able to put more pressure on them to get a better contract. Unfortunately, the evidence is not there that that's accurate. Right? Every time that the NALC goes and frees up a crap ton of money for the post office, it does not result in a better contract for us. Right? It results in more harassment. Every time you free up, right, the DOS award, you go free up a couple $1 billion a year. What that results in is more technology. The post office will invest that technology to better track you and harass you, right? They get new scanners. Cool. Every time you go lobby Congress and you free up $5 billion a year in the form of the pre-funding mandate, they hire they hire way more supervisors, right? Our ratio changed from one supervisor for every 20 carriers to one supervisor for every 7. They'll take any money you give them. They will spend it poorly in a way that is going to harm carriers, period. So yeah, this concept that if they're in a better financial situation, if we help them in a better financial situation, it'll get us a better contract. That has yet to be seen. It's never happened. John Murphy out there, he starts to go on a talk, and you can just hear he's burnt out. He says he's burnt out. We feel you, bro. Talking about the cost of, I don't know, deli meats. Holy crap. We get it. First and foremost, our job is difficult. Being a table 2 carrier is even more difficult. And then you go in, and I'm seeing how hard it is now to put time in after work to try and make a movement, to try and phone bank, to try and do these things to better your situation and the situation of the carriers around you. I can understand how burnt out you are. I think we need like a tag team, right? I think we should have like your podcast should have a backup crew, right? Every time you're overwhelmed and you're done, just tag in the next group. We'll hop in and we'll take over. But yeah, we get it. So John, I'm sorry you're burnt out. You are not alone. Believe me. I mean, the 40% retention rate shows you how burnt out we are, all of us. That's a table 2 plate. This is more generic. I know it's just Brian Renfro mentions it again. We will do this. We're going to do this. We're doing this. Everything is we will. Right? I mentioned how Brian on the first podcast with the next generation carriers, he talks about all these things we're going to do. Right? He even talks about how we're going to, after the resolution for transparency, he's like, yeah, we're going to involve them. No, he says we did. It never happened, right? We're going to give the membership updates. Yeah, that didn't happen. We're going to give the membership an accurate report of how negotiations went. Yeah, that didn't happen. But in every podcast, you'll find we're going to do this. We're going to do this. Do something. Take action. You want to send out a survey? Send out a freaking survey. Period. Right? And don't do fake... right, this is going on deaf ears. This is not a message to Brian. This is just a complaint because Brian won't listen to this because he doesn't actually care what the rank and file thinks. But people, we need to take action. We can't just rely on someone saying we're going to do something. We will 2 months from now. Yeah, 2 months and 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 months and 6 weeks. And 3 years later, here we are listening to the same crap. Brian talks about zero interest in Congress expanding the services. He says, I think it was Chris saying that postal banking would bring in like $9 billion. And Brian's like, if it brought in billions, the UPS would be all over it. That's false, right? As I mentioned before, the post office is not trying to increase their revenue. They are not trying to save the post office, right? That's where the conflicts of interest come in. When you put a PMG, when you install a PMG with conflicts of interest, and those conflicts, right, those friendships that he formed at FedEx or anywhere else, when they would benefit from the demise of the post office, you think that the post office is going to be interested in saving itself? It's not. The post office has been trying to put itself out of business. That's why they're run so poorly, because they want to fail. So yeah, this concept that if it brought in billions, the USPS would be all over it, that's false, right? The Postmaster General is installed by the president, handpicked by the president. That means he has the president's support. The president currently controls all three branches of government, right? If the PMG has the president's favor and he wanted to save the post office, he could say, hey, president, we're good friends. In order to save the post office, you have to do A, B, and C. The president could then tell the other branches of government, right? Because they're all in the same party, and the president is the leader of that party. He could say, hey, other branches of government, this is what we need to do to save the post office. The reason that doesn't happen is because they don't want to, period. Oh, so yeah, the idea that the post office is going to take on this concept, this idea that they're going to take on postal banking because it would help them and bring in billions of dollars. They won't do it, not because it's not true. They won't do it because they don't want to do it. He also mentioned, again, almost no chance of reaching an agreement. Great. Setting the tone. We'll get into what I expect out of this round of negotiations, what I expect to happen from it. It's not pretty. It's not pretty at all, but that'll be on a future podcast. They mentioned arbitrators consider the finances. Yes. Again, He says arbitrators consider the finances of the post office, but they don't go too far in either direction. I'm going to go ahead and call that bull. I'm going to go ahead and calling a 30% reduction in your entire pay scale going pretty far in one direction. An hour and 56 minutes. Yes, this was a very long podcast, and that's why I'm starting to go very long. Margot asks about the first offer. Brian non-committally. I mean, what is she? I'm trying to think of how she asked it. Asks about the first offer. Oh, what was their first office? Will we hear their first offer? I believe is how it was worded. And Brian non-committally, of course, says, yeah. I mean, yeah. They probably won't have one till late, like the end. I'm like, what? And then he goes on to say how their first offer, the last round of negotiations, came after the mediation period. I wonder why that is. It's almost like, I don't know, there was a missing piece to the negotiations. It's almost like someone wasn't present. So their first offer didn't come until later on. Strange. Oh, the last round of bargaining, we absolutely could have communicated that. And it's Brian Renfro talking about our priorities, our stances, and the first offer. I think we absolutely could have communicated that, but you just chose not to. Cool. There is a very interesting section in here. It's Brian Renfro, and he's talking about, I don't remember if it was Chris or Greg that brought up the concept of these grievances being incredibly expensive to the post office. The post office is not run well, and they keep violating the contract, and that costs them a lot of money, and that should be leverage, right? When the post office violates a contract that it has with its workers, and it costs the post office lots of money, that's leverage for us. And so whoever brought that up, Chris or Greg, good job. So Brian hops into this study being done by the OIG, right? The watchdogs of the post office. He talks about this study and how the study is going to tell us how much the post office spent on these contract violations. All right, sounds great. The OIG is going to tell us how much they wasted by violating the contract. That sounds like it's going to be really good leverage for us come contract negotiations, right? We'll be able to put a lot of pressure on them saying, if you just ran the company better, if you abided by the contract, you could save this much money, and you don't. So instead, you're going to give us that money. Sounds like really good leverage. I'm really looking forward to this OIG study. The problem is that OIG study over the last couple of years is going to be missing out on 30-something thousand cases, right? These are contract violations that they're studying. Those cost money. Well, when 30+ thousand contract violations are sitting, backlogged, not being handled, guess what? They don't count in a study because they don't have a cost, because they haven't been remedied, right? So this study that's been going on for 2 years, Brian Renfro is literally destroying that evidence, right, that the OIG study would normally show us. It should show us a massive number, a massive cost to the post office in contract violations. That number is going to be very small compared to what it would be if we handled 30,000 more contract violation cases. Now, Brian Renfro said he was going, right? Again, we're going to. We expect to. We think we're going to. We're gonna. We might. We probably will. We're going to file a national level grievance against the post office because they are not activating backup arbitration, right? They're not activating. That's why there's a backlog. That backlog is going to directly destroy the statistics put out by the OIG study. Brian Renfro, by not filing the national level grievance to get those handled, he's destroying the leverage that we would get from this study, because the statistics are all going to be messed up because they're missing 30,000 backlogged cases. Weird. Oh, well, that's the end of the review for the podcast. That went really long. I'm sorry. It was a long long podcast. And there's only so much I can listen to. A podcast, a number of times I can listen to it. And I think I did 3, and I'm beat after listening to that. Like I said, we're going to skip the interview for this week. I didn't want to calling out table 1. That was harsh. It was aggressive. It is what it is. I didn't want to have an interview tied to that or this episode, so we're going to skip it. The statement to the USPS. This week it's going to be real simple. Fix your 3849, right? Your pink slips. We deliver certified mail. People think by signing the back of a 3849, we can then redeliver that that certified mail because we have their signature. Well, guess what? On the back of that certified mail, there's going to be a return receipt, which means we cannot simply deliver it because we still need a signature on the return receipt. It would not take a lot of effort to design a 3849 that said, hey, we can't deliver this. Even though you think by signing there that we will deliver it, we can't deliver it because it has a return receipt. Or, you could do another option that says, hey, by signing here, you're giving us permission to sign the return receipt for you so that we can just deliver the certified like you're asking us to. It's not a difficult concept. But what you're doing is you're telling customers they can sign here to get their certified just delivered to the mailbox, and that's false. You're giving them false hope. Fix it. Statement to the public. We're going to keep this one nice and lighthearted. Please pick up your dog poo. Please. That's all for now. We're going to sign off again. Thank you for listening. Any feedback, reach out to me. We'll be on next week, record next Wednesday. I'll put on Facebook. Hopefully we have a Zoom call this Friday evening. Just have general discussions. I'll put that on the Facebook group page if you want to see it. All right. Adam Crosby signing off. Thank you for listening.